Greg, we're live.
This is great.
All right. I'm with Greg Fowler today, and we're going to have a great conversation. I want to tell you a little about who Greg is, and we're going to dive into having a really cool conversation. So, Greg Fowler is the founder of Lion Bolt Media, and he has a really cool podcast called it's called Real Estate Titans. Learning from real estate agents and teaching thousands of professionals from all over the world for more than a decade. And he does a lot of one-on-one meetings with some of the best and brightest in the world. And he often talks from the stage. So Greg's he is a really skilled speaker, and I want to learn more about you, Greg, today. So, Greg, what did I miss in my introduction of you that somebody would love to know about Greg Fowler?
Oh gosh, Dan. Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me, and hopefully I'll live up to that intro that you just gave me for everybody out there who's watching or listening. But no, I mean, I think that really covers it. I'm very passionate about real estate professionals and educating and teaching them how to grow and scale their business. Very specifically to the digital side and really look at it from a business standpoint. But I'm just there to learn just as much as I teach and surround myself with great people and just collaborate and be there. So it's an honor to be on the show for sure, Dan.
So you are in Colorado Springs, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you are a professional speaker, or at least a nationally known speaker.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about that, if you could. So, well, before we get into that, let's go back to like the background. So Sure. How long have you been in the digital marketing? How long have you been in this space? Like, how did you get in this space? Bring us, when were you an infant?
Yes. Great call. No, I love that, Dan, just kind of leading into it. So I've been eat, sleeping, and breathing digital aspects for 15 and a half years, almost going on 16. So really, when this all started coming to fruition and so many different opportunities arose, especially into real estate. But gosh, I mean, I've always had a passion for it, just kind of learning and growing in the technical aspect. But really, it's always been how to grow and how to scale and develop. Working with different businesses from all over the country to start with, but the past 10 years, very specific to real estate professionals. So I got involved that way, kind of crafting out that niche, if you will, and really understanding the ins and outs of, what it is to be a real estate professional and what it is to work with buyers and sellers and the psychology behind it, really kind of building that message, putting it in the right places, and then, driving brand awareness and ultimately converting more relationships is a transaction. So
why real estate agents?
Really what it came down to is my foot in the door was in the title side. So I've been in sales my whole life. And so that was the thing. I was this little kid with a backwards Seattle Mariners cap, knocking on doors, selling candy bars. So I love people.
Mine was bubble gum. I got in trouble from the principal because I was getting 50 cents for a pack of 10 bubble gums, and I'd sell it a quarter a pop, and they didn't like that.
Kindred spirits. I mean, I think the best start with it, whether it's a landscaping service or shoveling snow or selling something or other. But I mean, I just think that the engagement and communication with people has always just fascinated me, and really just understanding why people do what they do and kind of learning and growing, being the best version of yourself. So that really took me to so many different sales paths and careers, and kind of going into it. Into the real estate side, looking at the investment portion, but then the title side, really opened my eyes to,
you were selling for title, or?
Yes. Yep. Worked my way
and that
through
opened your eyes to what?
Just to the real estate industry in general.
I'm being a horrible host right now. I'm like completely interrupting you. I'm over talking you. You're telling us a great story, and I'm like just butting in.
No, this is good. This is for clarity. So going into the sales side of it, I think it's just a wonderful way to engage with real estate professionals. And I was always known as Switzerland, right? So I was having these beautiful conversations with the top producers, in my local markets, and then branching that out, knowing that I wasn't an immediate threat. I wasn't another real estate company, right? I was a title company. So looking at it from that standpoint, and just really understanding from day one that these real estate professionals, at the end of the day, if you're looking at it from a title standpoint, there's no need for title insurance if they're not producing transactions. So I used my technical basis prior and said, hey, look, I'm not talking about title insurance. I'm not talking about anything that's going on. If you're not producing, we don't have a relationship. So from day one, it was grow and scale with technology, social media, content creation, and aspects for real estate. And, I got out and I said, look, I've helped so many real estate professionals, whether I was on stage or one-on-one over all the years of being in that. I need to just do my own thing. So that's where Lion Bolt Media came from. And again, that's just kind of the whole path. So newer venture that way. But again, I've been diving into it for 15 years. Yeah.
So 15 years of talking with, and helping high producing real estate agents and all producing real estate agents. Pull out some nuggets. Like what makes a high producing, how does a real estate agent become, how do they achieve that? How do they become that high producing real estate agent? What have you learned about that?
Gosh, there's so many factors that play into it, but there are some continual veins. And I find that not just from, prior occupations and what I'm doing now, obviously, but also through Real Estate Titans. I've interviewed now 183, 184, real estate professionals around the world. So the best and brightest minds. And to that, I think that first and foremost is authenticity and consistency. So, people can read through whether you're being genuine in nature or you're trying to help or not, if you're looking out for yourself or you're actually looking out for others. So I think the right reasons for why you're doing what you're doing really do matter to the consumer. And then the consistency, right? You can be really fast, really heavy and hard for a year or two, you burn out. It's the long game is what you're looking for. It's not a get rich quick, right? So you just have to look at it from the standpoint of, what am I doing above and beyond just the money? Right? Who am I helping and serving? And along the way, doing the right thing the right way, you get paid, and you get paid quite a bit. I don't need to say that to any of the real estate professionals. They all know this, but there's a right and a wrong way to do it. So I think that those two things really stand out. There's a drive. You got to have the drive and the motivation. It's not easy. It's a grind. And, every single day, these real estate professionals, they get up and they're really, really working at their business. And it's not just put on autopilot. It's not just buttons that are pressed and you're done and you're dialed in. I mean, this is a constant thing. Setting up the infrastructure and putting the right team in place, leveraging and automating certain spaces of your business, crucially important too. So again, I can talk on and on and on about that.
So here's what I heard you say about that. It's about being authentic. Mm-hmm. It's about helping other people and not giving up.
Right.
Would that be?
That would
sum it up?
That'd be very fair to say, Dan, for sure. Yep. I would say that in a nutshell.
So you're a well-known speaker, and I'm curious. So tell us about your speaking, because I want to learn about what you've learned from the stage, right? Like what have you learned from speaking to others? So before I ask you that, give us a little bit of a context of a background. What's the smallest audience you've talked to? What's the largest audience you've talked to?
Gosh, so smallest would be one person. And
go on.
And that would be maybe including myself. So that'd be two if I count myself.
I never listen to myself, so it's fine.
It's there. And then thousands in the audience. So it's and it goes everywhere in between. Averages several hundred when I do that, whether it's on stage or whether it ends up being the live webinar sort of scenario, which is more what we're accustomed to these past several months. But I mean, you just learn so much. The preparation is key, and any true professional or athlete or actor or politician, any business professional, it's all about the preparation ahead of time. The championships are won before the game even starts. So it's the same thing on stage. Is you really need to know what you're talking about, not just reading a book or taking a course. But I'm a firm believer, and we discussed this before we went live. Practicing what you preach. You really do need to put in the time and put in the hours to be that true expert or professional. And not saying that you know everything, because no one does. But I think knowing enough, that having that background and that time frame to say, doing this and doing this yields these kinds of results. And this is kind of what we're looking
at systems then, like looking at a system so that you can get a consistent, predictable outcome.
Always. And whether any aspect of your life, and you can take that for personal or business. I mean, it's all about what we put our time into, we can reflect for hopefully positive outcomes, right? So what we focus on, we become. So being on stage, I mean, and to me, Dan, I don't care if it's one person or if it's 1,000 people. For me, I still feel the same way. I want to bring the same kind of energy. I want to make sure that whoever's there that's watching or listening takes something away that they can really implement. It's not fluff. It's got to be value. But then actionable items. I mean, it's wonderful to know all these different things that you have at your disposal, but it's a whole nother thing to actually implement them. It's like having the blueprints, but not having the tools to build. And to me, that's just not the way to go about it. And some speakers do it and they're more motivational or more inspirational. I throw that in there too, but to me, it's just taking action, because
You already know 87% of all real estate agents fail in this business. And you also know it doesn't have to be that way. If you're a real estate agent and you're looking for consistent and predictable income, I invite for you to get your free copy of Real Estate Evolution, the 10-step guide to C.P.I, consistent and predictable income for real estate agents. And you can do so when you visit www.therealestateevolution.com. I'll share with you your book that I authored to show you the way, and it's free. You just have to pay for the shipping. Thanks.
you can learn so much, you can be around right people, but if you're not taking the action consistently and massive amounts of action, nothing's going to yield as a return, right?
Yeah, I say it's the secret. It's the secret plus action that gets you results.
There we go.
Right?
Yes.
So you can't just believe it, right? Yes, you need to believe it, but you can't just believe it and hope that it's just going to rain down dollar signs on top of you, right?
No,
or
you got
relationships or health or whatever the case may be.
You're right. You got to put in the work. You got to put it. There's no elevator to the top, right? You got to take the stairs. And I think that there's ways to improve, cut learning curves, right? And learning from other people who have been there and done that. And I think that's super smart, but it's still the work. And there's so many people that look at the top producers and professionals. And again, just like you, I'm speaking to them every day. And, they've been in the business for 20 plus years, 30 years, some of these professionals. And they look at, oh my gosh, look at how successful Dan is. And look at how much he's accomplished in his life and his career. They don't understand. They don't understand the time that it took and the effort and the systems and the trial and error and all the failure that was a part of that, right? Because without that failure, you're not going to get to that success. So
I always say it's an overnight success, 20 years in the making.
Yes.
Right? That's what my favorite phrase.
Well said. Well said. But yeah,
so take me back to that. Take me back to this because you say it's about the preparation. Mm-hmm. It's about the knowledge and about contributing. Do you have like a ritual of like how do you prepare for a talking engagement to speaking to an audience?
Yeah. So for me, it's always just again being in that particular genre or area for as long as possible, practicing and going through, but up to the night before, that's really where I kind of go through, and depending on the size, but I really still put that same amount of effort. That night before, I really go over kind of my notes and what's happening and what I really want to engage with, speaking directly to that audience, because every audience is slightly different. The locations and where they're at, their niches that they're producing, the volume that they're producing, there's all kinds of things that are going on, their technical knowledge and basis. So I try to take that all into consideration. I don't just throw one presentation out there and hope that it sticks. It's very difficult to do that in a lot of instances. So knowing your audience is key. So I make sure that I'm in touch with that. I connect with some of them that I know they're going to be there, especially the people that invited me to speak, and kind of get as much information ahead of time. And then again, the night before, I just kind of go over what I would normally be saying in that particular topic, take some notes, things like that, and then just kind of jot them down. I don't have paper in front of me when I do these things. I don't. From time to time I have PowerPoints, but sometimes I don't. It just depends on what audience I'm going through. So a lot of that is just the mental preparation ahead of time and knowing kind of what main talking points I want to go to and then roll with it. I want as much engagement as possible. I don't want it to just be a speech out to them and they just kind of sit there flatline and I'm blowing minds. I want people to really have stuff to talk about, their business directly and kind of going through. So that's really it. But hey, Dan, I mean, I've been speaking on stage for, really heavy for the past 5 years. And, for me, I still get nervous every time. I mean, and I don't want to say it's butterflies.
How do you deal with those? How do you deal with that anxiety, the nervous? How do you deal with that?
I don't do a very good job of it. I don't think. I mean, and that's probably.
Do you cry like right before you speak? Do you get the tissue out? I mean,
hold on, everybody, hold on. And then I show up, hey, but it's what's up? It's really interesting. It's the night before. And kind of that morning of that, I just have the anxiety. I'm like, I just want to make sure that I deliver how I want to say it. And, I don't trip over anything. And I make sure that I'm engaging and that somebody walked away. So I haven't been able to get over any of that, when it comes down to it. I've had several conversations with other speakers, national and international keynote speakers. And, one in particular, This was years ago, and it was really interesting. And this did help me. Again, I still have nerves, but this helped. They said, they said, Greg, what's the big deal? Why do you have these nerves? And I said, well, gosh, because I'm in front of, hundreds, if not thousands of people. And I want to make sure that I'm bringing value and they're engaged and they walk away with something good, and I want to do the best I can. So they said, well, why are you nervous about hundreds or thousands? You're comfortable in a one-on-one conversation, right? I said, oh gosh, I love it. One-on-one, I'm all for it. I mean, this is fantastic. I can really listen. I can engage with that person. I can understand where they're coming from. And, that I feel very, very comfortable with. They said there's no difference. In fact, it's actually easier being on stage versus one-on-one. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And they said, you have more control over a conversation with thousands than you do on a one-on-one. I don't know what you're going to ask me right now, Dan. You could ask me anything, right? I have no control over what you're going to say. Right. But seriously, but in your front of hundreds of thousands, they're not usually going to say anything. I mean, even if you have mics out there in the audience, which I try to do every time, most of the time, they're not going to say much, and they're going to follow your lead and your energy. So
you're going to be able to control the conversation more so. You're
able to control the conversation more with hundreds of thousands versus one. So once I was told that, I said, okay, that helps a little bit, but it's still, there's no picturing everybody naked or doing any of those things or doing 50 push-ups and, Hail Marys. I don't do any of that. I mean, for me, it's just, I just show up, and as soon as I get on stage, the nerves just melt away. As soon as I start talking, and as soon as I just get out there, I just know, like, hey, it's not going to be perfect, and no one's ever perfect, but I know the words that I need to say. As long as they take something away, I've done a good job. And that's kind of where I go from it. So hopefully that was helpful.
So let's get some meat for our real estate agent friends. Sure. So you specialize in helping agents, with the digital marketing, SEO, with all that. So tell us, like, what's the top one or two things? If I was a real estate agent, I am, by the way, and I wanted to embrace technology. I wanted to embrace, social media, to be able to either communicate a message or to be able to drive traffic to an outcome. What would you tell me?
So I always state and start with this. It doesn't matter if it's just a one-on-one consult, if it's on stage with, thousands, it ends up being the content. So it always starts with your content. I don't care what automation, what systems, what reputation you have in your marketplace. If your content doesn't strike a nerve, if your content doesn't make the proper message engage with the audience, right? Buyers or sellers in your demographics, it's all meaningless. So I use the adage of the lion versus the rabbit, and I use natural selection. So this is how I kind of base it off of. So I'll tell everybody to bear with me. Dan,
I don't want to be the rabbit there, do I?
No, you are not the rabbit, my friend. And hopefully not. Otherwise, we really need to talk. But
I mean, I'm just saying, I don't want to be the rabbit.
No one wants to be in this case scenario. So there's really two aspects of this. And I start with, a lion in the plains of the Serengeti, right? And there happens to be a herd of zebra. And the lion has to hunt and gather for survival and feed their pride, their family, right? So what happens is there's two lions, one's smart, one's not so smart. The not so smart lion says, gosh, I'm really hungry. I see this herd of zebra. I'm going to attack, hunt, and kill every single one of these. I'm going to feed and then bring this to my family. The problem is that as soon as they go to attack that herd, they scatter and they're going to starve. They're not going to attack and kill everything. They're just going to miss everything. So the smart lion, which comes down to it, says, I know I can't attack and hunt and gather every single one, but I'm going to go for the 3%. A small percentile, right? That I can actually hunt, gather, feed, and then bring to my family. And I can hunt as many times as I want. So what happens is the lion has their message. Now the lion's message is they stand up, they lean forward, and it scatters the herd. It elicits an action, right? So what the lion's paying attention to is that 3%, the ones that are wounded, older, further back in the pack, those are the ones they hunt, gather. Now let's bring it to real estate, right? So here's what happens in real estate. The problem is that most real estate professionals or business professionals in general, we can take this across the board. They want to hunt and gather everything. They say, I want every buyer and every seller in my market. I want every buyer and seller in my town. I want every buyer and seller in this community. I want every buyer and seller in this age range with this income, with these occupations. It's impossible. You cannot hunt and gather every single one simultaneously. However, there's a small percentile at any given time that are ready to buy or sell. So you have to address the 3% over and over and over. But that's with the message. Your message is the lion, which I'll talk about the rabbit here in a second. The lion message is taking that niche, right, of buyers and sellers in that community, neighborhood, however you want to break it down in the demographics, and have a message that speaks to the hearts and souls. what they're actually going through. So it has to elicit an action. So does it engage with me? Are you answering questions that are in my head? Like if I read that, if I watch that, or if I see that, does it speak to me in such a way where Dan is in my head? How did Dan know that I was going through this emotional roller coaster? How did Dan know that this positive or negative thing in my life was eliciting me to actually make an action to buy or sell? The lifestyle changes, right? So buying or selling a home, it's elicited off a lifestyle change. We look at the end of the day, if I'm getting married, if I'm getting divorced, if I'm having a new child, if we're empty nesters, kids going away to college.
I recently wrote the book, Real Estate Evolution, the 10-Step Guide to C.P.I, Consistent and Predictable Income for Real Estate Agents. I wrote this book because I have sold real estate since 2007 and developed an immense amount of experience and knowledge. During my journey, I've witnessed hundreds and maybe even thousands of real estate agents fail in this business, and I firmly believe that that's a shame. In Real Estate Evolution, I will show you the exact steps that I have used as a real estate salesperson to sell 1 to 15 homes every single month for the past 129 consecutive months. It took me more than 2 decades to learn the sales and persuasion techniques, and more than 1 decade to master the real estate sales techniques to be able to produce the content that makes up this book. And it took me more than a year to write at a pace of 3 hours every single day. If you're a real estate agent and you're looking for consistent and predictable income in your business, I invite you to get the book, Real Estate Evolution, and you can get that by visiting www.therealestateevolution.com, and I'll even give it to you for free as long as you pay for the postage.
If there's a family death, right? If there's a divorce, all kinds of things elicit to buy or sell. Inside those segments, those are emotions. Speaking to those audiences, right? If I'm relocating, if I'm PCSing through military, whatever it ends up being.
I found that no one's ever actually happy to talk to me initially because of it's that life change of what they're doing. It's like they're getting divorced or getting married, they're upsizing, downsizing, whatever the case may be, right? So yeah, I've definitely found that. So go on, Greg. So
that's a good point though, Dan. Is again, just addressing to them directly, not this catch-all like, oh, I'm the best real estate professional in the market. They don't care, right? So first and foremost is you're addressing their concerns and you're getting inside their head. You're answering questions that they have before they even know they have them. You're making a connection, right? It's very specific. Secondarily is, okay, Dan's connecting with me. What's in it for me though? Because there's a lot of other real estate professionals that are seasoned and they have awards and they're top producers. Again, the consumer, there's some weight to it, but at the end of the day, they care about themselves first. That's just the reality. So how is Dan going to get me through the emotional process of what I'm dealing with as a buyer or seller through what I'm dealing with? Not just everybody, but what I'm dealing with and feeling. And then at the end of the day, you're going to showcase how you're going to do that and why you separate yourself from your competitors. But then third, and most important, is we work with who we know, like, and trust. So you could be the best at what you do. You could connect with me. You could understand my process inside and out. But if I don't like you, I'm not working with you. So those 3 factors in the content creation segment are that nerve striking message. It's the lion. Now, the problem is very few get that right. And it's dead honest. I don't care what business is in, but real estate especially. The focus just isn't there. The focus is shining the awards that they want.
Look at me, rather than I understand that this is a challenge that you're going through right now. Right. I get that you are a single dad and you just divorced from your wife and you got 2 kids right now. And the reality of it is that you want to make certain instead of a 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhome, you want to be within a proximity of your kids because you want to maintain that relationship because you want to be a good dad. Right. Like, is that the level that we're talking at here?
Correct. And then go deeper. So you think, okay, well, I have 2 kids. Gosh, what's going to happen? Are they going to go to different schools? Are they going to need new friends? I mean, how are we going to guide them through this process and really try to elicit as much support and love that we can? But that's a negative situation. There's positive ones, right? I mean, people relocating because their children had children and I want to be close to the grandkids. Well, I'm moving from Minnesota to Colorado now. That's happy. I can't wait to sell my house and buy a new one in Colorado because I'm closer to family. You need to be able to touch on these things, but you got to understand your end user. It's not about us. It's about them. They need to shine. We're there to serve. And that's the most important thing. At the end of the day, you do shine because you do better than everybody else and you have a message that elicits that. But that's just to take the action. That's just kind of the tip of the portion. Most people don't do that. Most people are the rabbit. So let's go back to the lion versus the rabbit. The rabbit in the plains of Serengeti in front of that same herd of zebra runs and screams at the top of their lungs towards the zebra. The zebra looks down and says, right? They're really,
I wanted to scream, right? But I got a lot of people. I don't know what a rabbit screams like, right? I wanted to do it, but I don't know what rabbit.
I would imagine. I would love to see. Have you seen that? What is the goat that has the goat scream? And that was viral years and years ago. It was like really loud. I would love to hope that a rabbit does that. I don't even know if a rabbit does scream, but imagine if that was happening, right?
Okay, I got
the zebra is not. They're not going to do anything. They're going to look down at the rabbit and say, "You're not a threat to me. I'm not going to move, and I'm not scattering the herd."
Just gonna sort of get lost.
That's it, and it falls on deaf ears. The same thing happens with business. Most business professionals and real estate professionals, their physical message, right, in front of a buyer or seller, or their digital message is a rabbit. It does nothing. It's noise, and that's why they yield the results that they yield. The best and brightest minds understand that. They might not know how to accomplish that, and that's where somebody like me comes into play. So that's kind of where it goes in. So that first and foremost is getting your brand and getting your message dialed in, because anything that you build besides that is almost meaningless. And you might generate a few transactions on top of things. You might be able to generate some consistency what you're doing, but you're never going to grow and you're never going to scale past that. And if we're talking about growth and scale, you have to dial that in first and foremost.
Yeah, so I want to dive into that a little bit more, get some specifics, right? So I have a really clear, before I do that, Serengeti. I always consider myself the wildebeest. Can I be the wildebeest?
Yeah, yes, right? You can.
I'm not quitting, baby, until I get to the other side. Can I go wildebeest?
That is fair. I will meet you at the watering hole, my friend. So
okay, you didn't give me that option, right? So, all right, cool. All right, so it's about it's about taking that 3%, approaching them. It's about understanding that deep and emotional need and connecting at that level, right? So it's the messaging is the starting point, and most entrepreneurs, business owners, and certainly real estate agents get that wrong.
Truly,
okay. And so tactically, so let's say we get that, right? Now what's next? Now, how can we actually put that in action?
Love it. So the recommendation is really 3 parts. I call it the 3 pillars. So if you're looking at it, it's the visuals, which starts with photos. Secondary is video. And then third is copy, right? The actual text. Okay. So those 3 combined are really going to be your messaging that's going out, whether it's paid advertisement, digital or physical, right? That really sums everything up when it comes down to it, whether it's organic or paid. So I really recommend sitting down with your team or as an individual and masterminding group and really figure that out. Who are we speaking to? What are our goals? Who's our audience, right? We're not trying to be everything to everyone. There's riches and niches. So I think really figuring out your demographics, what you've currently done, if you're a seasoned pro and you're like, hey, where am I really hitting hard? Where am I really having my successes? How do I double down on that? And then how can I grow from that? Or if you're brand new, you got to start somewhere. You just can't say, I'm going to work with every buyer and every seller in my market. That's going to be very difficult to craft a message that works, that's going to stand out, and instead of just being the typical real estate professional. So sitting down and doing that is first and foremost, getting that message across, doing the best you can. You got to send it to a professional. So I'm not saying to myself, but on team, very specifically, I have a copywriter, right? I'm not a professional writer. This is not something that I do and eat, sleep, and breathe. You need to bring on people that eat, sleep, and breathe what they do, and they do it the best. So there's all kinds of sites like Upwork and things where you can find copywriters or along those lines. Try to find a real estate specific copywriter. Don't just try to find some general, because guess what? The real estate specific copywriter, they understand the industry. They understand where you're coming from.
There's a nuance of what we do here to be able to communicate that. And you say that you're talking about the niches. So there's like a 2-step thing there. I'm hearing you, right? The niches of who you're communicating to, and also the niches of the okay, here's that professional of copywriting rather than a generalist like I can help you with everything. Unless if it's I can help you with everything to get those professionals, like that could in itself could be a niche. Right, to sort of like a general contractor type thing, Right. That's just something like I just like aware of as you're talking about that.
Yeah, you have to really craft that out, but you got to put the effort and time frame and thought process. So finding that right copywriter and getting the messages, and you got to test it out. You're not going to have a silver bullet and find the perfect one right off the bat, but you have to start somewhere and then really hone in on somebody who can paint that picture, really, really weave that message in a way that we could never do, because that's not our job. That's not what we eat, sleep, and breathe. We get the starting point and they wrap it up. Secondarily is looking at it from a videographer standpoint. I can shoot video, I can edit video, I can splice, do all that. That's not what I live for. That's not what I do, right? So hiring a professional videographer to document a day in the life of what it is for you and your clients, your team, right? Really showcasing those niches. For example, I shot a video shoot with one of my clients last week on Thursday. Fantastic idea, because one in particular, the segment of the team, because I break down as many of those areas as I can with the team. One of the agents was talking about new families. So, and how passionate she is about helping new families get into their home. So what we did is we shot at their office. We got kind of the couple lines that she said, really stylistically and cinematically done. But then we went to one of her clients' house. And what we ended up doing was we shot their client testimonial talking about how Tiffany helped them through the process, right, of being a new family. And they were sitting there with a little one. And then we shot the pitter patter of little feet running and them playing in the background. So it's really 3 parts, but that's painting a picture.
That's hitting that emotional. That's hitting it right there that you were talking about earlier, right?
You need to do that with every section of your business, buyers or sellers, right? And try to craft and weave that message in video and make it cinematic. Don't just have like it on your face, right? I always use the analogy of a pro surfer. So if there's 2 professional surfers and one's talking about how amazing surfing is and how it changes their life, and it's on their face the whole time. The second pro surfer is talking about how amazing surfing is and how it changed. All of a sudden it cuts to them on a wave and they're still talking, right? But that's more an emotional, more cinematic. No one wants to look at our faces. They want to see visuals. They want to see drone flyovers of the mountains and everything. So again, getting a proper videographer who can help you script that out and figure that out, that's huge. Whether it's following you around, you do community videos, things like that. I can't stress that enough. I mean, I think that's key to having a pro do it. And there's nothing wrong with your cell phone. There's nothing wrong. There's a time and a place for live video. There's a time and a place for interviews. There's a time and a place for raw footage in the moment, but there's also a time and a place to take it up a notch. And it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right? So that's a whole conversation with video and really implementing that. And that's something that I love to speak on too on stage. But yeah, hopefully that helped.
Man, thank you so much, Greg, for everything that you're sharing with me today. I want to wrap it up. As I wrap it up, you mentioned your podcast earlier. So I'm just curious. I'm really curious here, Greg. It's just like, do you have any special guests that are coming up on your podcast? Anything that, you said the best and the brightest is what I heard you say earlier. I mean, just curious, anybody that you want to mention that you might have coming up soon?
Gosh, I never do any pre-announcements. I kind of keep it secretive. However, because you and I are speaking, Dan, and this is a very special case scenario when it comes to this. I love being able to collaborate, and it's been an honor to just share a little bit of messaging with your audience. But you are actually going to be on Real Estate. Yes.
Oh my God, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I love it. And that should be on Tuesday. And I wrote this down. So Tuesday the 16th. So it's coming up. I think it's next week. So I'm super excited.
I'm gonna put that on my calendar.
Yeah. Hopefully it's already there, Dan. Come on.
Wait. Oh, that's right. But if I wasn't a part of it, I would put that on my calendar right now. That's so freaking awesome.
Look, yeah,
Great.
I just can't wait to share that story and kind of go through. And we've had, some incredible people on the show, and it's just wonderful to really understand perspective of top producers and why they do what they do and how they do it and different thought processes that they have. And even though it is very driven onto real estate and it's realtors, lenders, builders, developers, mainly on the residential side, but we obviously still have commercial brokers and developers. It's about people. It's about their stories. And to me, it's the human condition. I think that's so important is, at the end of the day, yes, we can have another tool or tactic or system, applied to your business to grow and scale, but it's the human factor. This is a people business. Awesome. and learning from the best and brightest minds, I think is fantastic. So yeah, I can't wait to have you on the show. It'll be great.
I'm looking forward to it. Greg, if I'm a real estate agent, I want to learn more about, your services, what you do, how can I get in touch with you?
Best way is just visiting the website, lionboltmedia.com. And then really you can kind of look in there. There's a whole description of kind of what we do and how we do it. But if you really want to dive deep into the aspects of, dynamic ads and conversion funnels and building that brand awareness and kind of talking what we're going through, tracking and retargeting, but most importantly is that end follow-up and nurturing, because the two factors that we talk about here, which are most important, the first one is brand awareness. But at the end of the day, you can be the most famous and most liked person in your market. You got to convert transactions because that's helping you continue your business revenue. So we talk about that because it's not just lead gen for the sake of lead gen, because there's a lot of services that'll do that. This is something completely different. It's a different animal, not to throw the lion in there, but it's a part of that. So you can look at the free. Yeah, that's right. Or the wildebeest. I should put that on there. Change the logo out. I think that'd be good. But if you click on the free value video tab, I have a 55-minute video that is talking about everything that the top real estate professionals are using to really grow and scale their business with digital aspects. It explains what we do deeper at Lion Bolt Media. If there's anything that stands out, you can set up a free consultation, and my calendar is straight on there right after the video. So if you want to sit down for 30 minutes over Zoom or over the phone, we can talk about strategy. We can talk about what you're currently doing and spending. And if we're a fit, great. If not, at least I get to know you, you get to know me, and no harm, no foul. So that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to next Tuesday. And for those that are watching, I just want to give you a little preview of coming attractions of something I'm working on, because oftentimes I get people to ask me to do one-on-one coaching. I've always said no, and just look out for some special announcements coming up, because there's something special that I'm working on, and we'll probably talk about next month or so. So thank you again, Greg, and appreciate you, and take care.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate you.
Give us a thumbs up by clicking the like button below. Don't forget to subscribe to Get Rock Solid Coaching channel and stay ahead of the game.